Hello, everyone. I'm John Manning, and welcome to another edition of A Life in Construction. Joining me today is Jeanne Asquith, PG. She's the owner of Third Rock Testing Facility in East Aurora, New York. Hi, Jeanne. Can you tell us a little about yourself and your business, please?
Hi, John. Thanks for coming to our facility.
Yeah, awesome.
So we can have a chat. So this is Third Rock LLC. We've been in business since 2000.
Okay.
And we test soil, rock, materials, mainly compaction testing, permeability testing, tensile testing, compression.
Cool.
So, yeah, we have quite a list of tests that we do.
So before we go a little bit further, what's the PG stand for?
Professional geologist.
Really?
Yeah.
That's impressive. I'd never seen that term before, right?
Yep.
So where did you go to school for that?
Alfred University.
Okay. Yeah. That's cool. Mm-hmm. And what do they mainly do, geologists like that? What's their main
Geologists do actually a lot. So we can do hydrogeologic investigations, any kind of geologic investigation, including bedrock, soil, any surface, earth type things.
Why is that important?
So, for example, right now we're focusing a lot on geologic investigations at farms where they're building manure tanks.
Okay.
And they have to make sure that there's no seismic issues or the soil is not too soft to build on, or they may have bedrock that's susceptible to karst, which would be like sinkholes. Groundwater is an issue, surface water. So you have to make sure that the tank is okay to build in a certain location so that it wouldn't impact the environment.
So, like, I know here locally, like Amherst has huge soil issues out there, right?
Yeah.
And it's the mud, though.
Yeah, so the soil there, the deep soil there, it's not real deep. It's actually foundation level. It's so wet and so clayey that it's the consistency of peanut butter. So when they build the homes there, and in Amherst, a lot of homes have a heavy front. So you have the front of your house has a lot of the heavy building stone, where they put the fancy building stone on it. But then the back is just siding. So it creates a differential weight issue.
Yeah.
And you have differential settlement, which causes a very, very large problem.
And I would imagine, like, the moisture content or a freeze-thaw cycle plays a big effect in that as well, right? From its swelling and not going back. I mean, it's actually pushing the foundation walls in and cracking them.
Yes.
Typically if they're brick, especially if they're...
So, and out there, the problem, too, is they've put in so much drainage. Mm-hmm. So they have drainage swales that are very deep. And so that has created the water content to actually drop. So it's more of a shrink issue because they've lowered the water content of the soil.
You don't even realize the power of that, right? From the stresses and the strains that this builds up on a foundation wall, right? It's got to be incredible to... I know years ago they didn't pour solid ones, so it's just a brick. But now they're reinforcing it with rebar and all kinds of other artificial things, right? So
So in addition to that, people didn't watch contractors very well back in the day,
right?
And they weren't using a lot of rebar,
right?
So that has also created.
Has the town of Amherst or any local area, contracted you to come out and do an investigation on that, some type of forensic investigation on that?
No, there's companies that do that. Okay. We mainly work for the either the new builds or the ones that are requiring an addition but we've heard some stories of the 6-inch or 4-inch gas main shearing.
Wow. That's not good.
No. Big cracks. It's hard. Big cracks.
Oh, and by the way, it's hard for those people to sell those houses when they see that too. I know I did a couple jobs years ago back then. We reinforced the walls with carbon fiber.
Yeah.
It was designed for seismic activity from the Japanese, and it's working pretty well from the couple jobs I did out there. But so that brings us to our topic today, Jeanne, third-party testing.
Yeah.
I mean, is that an accurate comment, third-party testing?
Yes. So there's actually people, I mean, some of the DOTs, I think, require it. And you probably know that.
Yeah.
But, yeah, so third-party testing is important because there's no conflict of interest, or at least there shouldn't be a conflict of interest.
Yeah, so I kind of looked it up
Yeah.
today, and let me just read you this little thing that I read. And I would like to hear what you say about it. Third-party testing is when a manufacturing company sends its product to an outside, unbiased lab for testing to see if it meets the standards of the company and to ensure that what is on the data sheet or on a whatever, right, actually accurate or what it can do. Is that pretty accurate?
Yeah, that's great. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it is mandatory in a lot of things, and it's great. We've done third-party testing with you before on some of our products, and it really validates the product, right?
Yes.
So, tell us about some of the testing you do for the construction industry in general.
Yeah, so we do testing on landfills, roadways.
Why would you do landfill?
Landfill testing, it's actually pretty interesting. So when they build a new facility, a new landfill, they put on the bottom of the landfill, they put a clay liner and other types of liner that are low permeability. So they're trying to make it so the leachate doesn't go into the groundwater or into the environment. And
by putting a clay basin?
Yep.
Okay.
By putting the clay in. It's called a liner. And then typically the landfills now are designed where they have a clay liner and a synthetic liner. So a HDPE liner. So it's actually called a double liner. Mm-hmm. And some of the landfills even have a system where they have a double liner, a drainage layer, and then another double liner. So landfills required in New York State, those liners are tested for a multiple slew of tests that we run. So grain size analysis, compaction, permeability, water content, and then that actually, what that's doing is it's saying the soil will work as a low permeability liner. So we're saying, okay, this pile of soil that you have built up here, the source is suitable for a clay liner material in New York State.
Is there a name of that clay? I'm sure there's probably a special name for the clay that they use, right? Is it a local clay, or do they have to bring that in?
Well,
somewhere special?
It's usually they use a local source because it would be very expensive.
Yeah.
And we're fortunate in New York where we have a lot of local clay because of the glaciers deposited nice material.
I know my brother-in-law built his pond in his backyard. He put a clay liner in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right.
So it would hold the water in.
Same principle.
Right.
Right. So nothing can permeate through it. Right. Because I would imagine in a landfill there's just issues of runoff and chemical and all that other stuff, right?
Yeah. So landfills are pretty interesting because they not only test the low perm materials, but they test the drainage layers, which if the leachate gets through the liner, through the first liner, it will get into the drainage layer, and that'll go into a manhole, and then they can see that they have a leak.
Oh.
So they can test and figure out where the leak is.
What's the definition of leaching?
Leachate?
Yeah.
Leachate is the liquid that forms from garbage.
Oh. Okay, cool. I did not know that. Mm-hmm. So how many years you been doing this? And what got you involved in this business?
Yeah, so when I graduated, when I was still actually in college, I was saying to myself, I'm not really sure what a geologist does in work, right?
Just wake up one day and go, I think I'll be a geologist.
Right. I mean, I like to be outside, and that was
the
main, and I loved doing, being in the woods and looking at different things.
Yeah.
But I asked my professor, I said, hey, is there any way you can get me a summer job in this? So my first job was actually working at a landfill down in Allegheny County.
Oh, okay.
And I did a bunch of testing there. So I started learning all the lab testing. And then after that, I worked for a driller for a short period of time, and then started working for a laboratory in Orchard Park that did all this testing. Mm-hmm. And then in 2000, formed Third Rock with another worker. So
I have some more questions about that. Why is it important to test materials?
Well, just in the case we were speaking about the landfills, you want to make sure that the materials that you're using are going to be appropriate for the construction that you're working on. So you want, like if you're building a road, you want to make sure that it won't be too soft.
Gotcha.
So, you'll have ruts and potholes and all that. And you want to make sure, for example, in a landfill, you have the clay that would hold back the leachate. There's just tons of examples.
Yeah. So, is there like a third party standard you have to go by, or is that just every job's different?
Yeah, every job is different. I mean, quite often we have to follow specifications.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So back to the landfill example, the DEC has requirements for the maximum permeability, minimum permeability, whatever material you're testing. So you have to meet those requirements.
So standards, I imagine there's probably a whole book that I'm not even familiar with, but I know when you do stuff for us, it's like to ASTM standards.
Right. So ASTM has volumes of standards. Yeah.
Yeah.
Many standards.
Yeah. They write the book on everything almost, don't they?
Yes.
Is that primarily the most testing you do too, is ASTM?
Yes. Yep. And I mostly ask clients, what ASTM standard would you like us to follow? Because it gives us a guide on how to do a test.
Right.
And it's also providing a standard for, to compare your results to other labs or.
So ASTM, am I correct when I say American Society for Testing Materials?
Yep.
Is that it?
They're ASTM International, but yeah, that was their old acronym. Mm-hmm.
So I guess being a third party company for testing materials, what is your biggest hang up as far as issues, from a testing standpoint or from a time standpoint? What are your pain points do you typically see in the industry from your standpoint?
I think it's hard to for people to understand what we do.
It really is.
And the requirements.
No, this is a great.
Yeah.
I love this podcast right now.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to get a lot out of this, and I think a lot of people are going to say, "Wow, there's people that really just do this." Yes.
Yeah. So most people don't really understand what goes into the testing.
Mm-hmm.
The preparation of the testing, the length of time, the training,
Right.
the cost of the equipment, the calibrations of the equipment. I mean, so we're accredited by AASHTO, and we're required to calibrate everything. I mean, we joke about it and say even our broom is calibrated, but we calibrate everything.
That's what I was going to ask you. How often do you have to calibrate your own equipment and like your Instron machine and your other testing pieces of equipment? How often do you have to have that validated?
Yeah, so those, like that machine there, we calibrate every year. Once a year, those get calibrated, and they calibrate the speed,
right,
the load,
right.
Yeah, and
we're gonna do a little demo back there, hopefully, of that as well. So that'd be pretty cool.
Yeah.
So everybody gets to understand what we're talking about. Mm-hmm. So do you have an official stamp
for PG?
Well, for like if somebody comes up to you and says, "Hey, Jeannie, I need this tested from a third party. How do I get this validated? Is there a certain stamp that you stamp on that validation? No. Is there a certain?
No, we don't have that. I mean, I think if you sign as a professional,
like an engineer, professional engineer would have a stamp or something like that, right? I'm kind of thinking like that. Yeah. That's not the case, though.
Not like a third party.
Okay.
I mean, you can say that this is, you can have a statement on your reports that would indicate that you're third party. And
so you used the word earlier that I love, and I just want to throw it back at you. Why is third party accreditation important? The word accreditation, I love that word. Why is that important?
Yeah. So our accreditation requires us to pretty much do every kind of training on ourselves and on our employees. We have to calibrate our equipment to rigid standards. Mm-hmm. Our reports have to be a certain way. Our equipment has to be all again, calibrated, maintained. They require maintenance. You have
Yeah.
to, yeah, I mean, you have to have a quality manual,
Sure.
which includes all of the things that you have to do. And what the ultimate goal there is to have a quality system. So if you have the correct system in place, you're providing accurate, reliable results.
Do you ever find yourself being a third-party testing facility? Do you have to do some type of auditing? Do you have third parties come in and do an outside audit, or is that something that may be required from a federal or state standpoint?
Yeah, our AASHTO inspection, they come in and watch us do our testing. And they go through all of our records. Mm-hmm. And we do proficiency testing. So they send us soil that they know the answers.
Oh.
And then we test the soil.
Sneaky.
And you're
yeah.
compared to, I think there's quite a few labs that do. So you're all compared.
Around here?
No, that's nationwide.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a lot of competitors locally around here, or are you like, because
No,
I've never
there's
heard
a
of.
few.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a handful. I mean, we all kind of, I think, do things that are a little different from each other. So everybody is good at, certain things and have strengths that the other ones don't have, or offer testing that the other ones don't provide.
So, yeah. So following these standards, whatever the standard may be, whether it's ASTM or a federal or a spec that you said, these tests could take anywhere from maybe 1 hour to 6 months, 2 years, right?
Yeah, there's tests
like
that are,
what kind of different tests are going to go
Yeah.
real quick, and then there might be another test, like I know UV testing might take months.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, we do pH testing, can be as short as an hour, where permeability testing, if you're using certain other permeants than water and you want to look at the long term, you can be months. UV testing is months.
So I'm going to sound dumb here, but you, what was the word, the testing you just said you did?
The permeability
No,
testing
the other
with
one.
the permeant.
No.
pH?
pH. I was like, how did they come up with 7 as neutral? I mean, who just says, okay, 7, that's neutral. 1 to 14, we're using 7. Who came up with that?
I don't know.
Right? I don't know. They just
Well, yeah,
pulled it
there's
right
funny
out of the air.
stories about that. I heard a story when I was taking my health and safety training, and they said they were at a town meeting, and one of the town persons stood up and said, "Why are we bothering to get the pH to 7? Why don't we get it to 1?"
It's exactly it. But I learned my lesson on that when I said something in a meeting one time, and I was sitting with the chemist, and they said, "You're an idiot." Okay. I learned my lesson that day, right?
Chemist.
Yeah, I know. So what do you find most challenging from a project standpoint and testing standpoint? Is it time? Is it resources? Is it special tooling or equipment? I mean, an Instron machine's got to be, I couldn't even imagine. They're probably $20,000-$30,000, right? Right?
Yeah.
Easy, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But you got a great facility here.
So the expense.
Yeah.
Yep. It's all over the place. It depends on the test. It's everywhere,
Yeah.
It depends. Sometimes it's the expense. Sometimes we don't have the equipment. And then do we buy it or do we sub it out? Sometimes it's the time.
Yeah. I always like to ask this question as well, as from a safety standpoint. What's your safety culture here? Do you spend a lot of time on safety here, as far as especially working with special equipment like that?
Well, we would put safety glasses on.
Yeah.
Everyone wears steel toe boots.
Sure.
But, gloves, the normal.
Yeah, because you're mixing a lot of chemicals, right?
Well, we don't really handle many chemicals.
You don't?
No.
Okay.
We are mainly clean. We have very dusty conditions, and we'll wear dust masks if we're doing things that are real dusty, but mostly we don't accept hazardous materials or contaminated materials, so we don't really have that issue.
So you don't get asked to ever handle any of that stuff? Or?
Well, we get asked, but we're not really suited to handle it.
Yeah, I could see why that would be an issue. Right? And how many years you said you've been here?
22.
Wow.
Yeah.
So business is good.
Business is good.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
So why don't we get a chance? Go back. We'll go take a look at some of your equipment, maybe video a few tests back there. Give everybody a little better understanding concept of what actually you do and how you do it. And what you do for a life in construction.
Okay.
All right.
And then we can also, for compressive strength, we can test cylinders, we can test any shape, whatever.
For example, you could test, like, if you wanted to test the compressive strength for concrete out on a job site.
Right.
You
A
put that
machine
into
like this.
You put it into a cylinder, and then you would take it to failure to check on the compressive strength.
And this machine won't test, this machine, the load is too low for concrete.
Okay.
6-inch cylinders, maybe 4 occasionally, but generally this machine will test 3 by 6 cylinders or less.
Okay. Go.
It
Now.
goes up to 22,000.
Whoa.
Emily, you put that on there.
And then you can also
I just had to.
set different grips in there, so those.
So the
Pins?
grips would replace these two
Right.
pieces right here. So an example I think would be a good would be like the dog bones.
So this is a sieve stack. So these are all different sizes, and they decrease as you go down the stack. So when you pour a sample into the stack, it will separate it by size. Drop.
Can I go like this?
No.
Can I go like this?
All the way up though.
I don't know how I'm getting out there around. Jeanne, that was pretty cool. I didn't realize all that different test methods you have to test to for a lot of different things, and making me do that one, that was a little bit of a workout for me as well. Who needs to go to a gym?
You don't when you work here.
Yeah, I know, right? That was cool.
It's a very active job.
Yeah, I can see that,
Yeah.
right? For those of you who want to look this up, we'll be on YouTube showing these videos and talking about some of the test methods we went through and some of the equipment and machinery we went through that's typically used every day for a life in construction. Jeanne, I'd like to thank you for your time today and for educating us on soil and testing and ASTM and all that other good stuff that goes along with it in your world. That's your world, right?
Yes, that's our world. Well, thanks, John.
Yeah, no, it's been really, really cool. So I want to say thank you to our listeners to listening to another episode of A Life in Construction. I'm John Manning, your host. Have a good day and a safe day. Goodbye.